Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Tonight, we have news on the education front for the District of Columbia. New figures show more and more young people in the city are receiving their high school diploma, with the graduation rate for the 2024-2025 year reaching a record level. Now, even in the face of that good news, there is a downside. Statistics show DC is still trailing the national average. So, what's driving the gains and what are the barriers that remain for DC youth? We'll dig into the data, the trends, and the real world impact on families and classrooms. Joining us to talk about it is the State Superintendent of DC Public Schools, Dr. Antoinette Mitchell. She's going to break down where DC stands and where it needs to go next. Dr. Mitchell, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to join you.
Sure thing. Even though we have been having the same question for those who were in your position long before, we still have to break down understanding exactly what it is that the DC State Superintendent of Education does, because I know there is a superintendent, or a CEO, or and the like, but DC is not a state, so for a lot of people that may be confusing.
Yes, I can imagine. In the role of State Superintendent of Education, I work to ensure that there are high quality standards in place for the traditional public school system, DCPS, as well as the charter schools which exist here in the city. In addition to standards, we are also the interface with the Department of Education. And so all of the funding and grants that come through the Federal Department of Education come through OSSI, and then we disperse to the school districts in the city. In addition to that, we are responsible for accountability. So we offer the state assessment each year, and we also are the repository for data on how our system is doing. So we have all of the responsibilities of a state agency, and we carry out those responsibilities through the Office of the State Superintendent of Education here in DC.
So let me ask you this, or let me try to break it down just a little bit more for those who may not fully understand this. As I said before, and this is not to get into the weeds of it all, but for example, in the state of Maryland, you have a superintendent of education. That is a state level position, and then you have county superintendents. And so it is the only difference is that DC does not have any counties. It just has, in essence, one county.
Yes, that is a very good analogy. Maryland State Department of Education, Virginia State Department of Education. DC does not have counties. We have school districts or local education agencies. And in the city, we have 68 different school districts or local education agencies. DCPS is our traditional school district, and it comprises about 52% of the students. The other 48% of our students are in charter school districts or charter LEAs. And together, those two entities, DCPS and the charters, are the two sectors that make up our education system here in DC.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for our listeners, does that help you? Yes, I hear you in your car saying yes. That does make sense now. Let us move on to the issue at hand. The big news, obviously, is the numbers that show DC's four-year graduation rate at an all-time high. What specific changes or programs do you credit for that rise?
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for the question. We recently released the state report card, which is a repository of data about the health of our system. And indeed, we found that in the 24-25 school year, our graduation rate rose 2.6 percentage points to 78.7%. This increase is wonderful because it means our system is moving in the right direction. We think that the increase is the result of several factors. First, this cohort of ninth graders is the first cohort after the pandemic. So this tells us that we are bouncing back. We have stood up a ton of programming that supports students as they matriculate through high school. And those programs include things like dual enrollment, in which high school students can take college courses. The programs include AP courses, which are available at high schools throughout the city. And those are advanced placement courses where students can take really rigorous courses in different fields. In addition to that, recently, we've really doubled down on our career and technical education offerings in our high schools, recognizing the fact that students really need to understand how what they're learning in school will impact them when school is finished, when they finish high school. And so we've increased the number of students who are taking CTE courses. We have established what we call advanced technical centers in the city, where students from high schools across the city can attend an advanced technical center, take courses. Right now, courses are available in nursing and cybersecurity, earn college credit, and at the same time, learn about a future career. There are internships associated with this, all sorts of equipment that individual high schools are not able to provide for students. Very, very special. In addition to that, it's just the hard work of our teachers, of our parents, of our kids, as they recognize the importance of education. Our mayor has supported both career and technical education, as well as other improvements in the system. We, as a city, are really doubling down on literacy. We've got high impact tutoring in our schools. We are working to ensure that students grow in mathematics. We've got a math task force that's made recommendations around how we proceed to help students achieve better math scores. All of these things are the result of the whole city pulling together to support students as they move through school.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned the pandemic, and I think in every conversation that I've had regarding the education, health, welfare of children, the pandemic always comes up. So I guess my first question is, this increase is for 2024, 2025, is that compared to last year and the year before? Or would you say there is also a difference pre-pandemic compared to where we are now?
Yes, the graduation rate has been increasing each year. So that the 2.6 increase is a 2.6 increase over last year's graduation rate. The pandemic was a very difficult time for many kids and many schools, and it caused a disruption in life in general and schooling as well. And so the graduation rate increase is indicative of things coming back to normal. People being able to attend school, being able to live life as they were before. And I really think that change has added to the increase in graduation rates.
Mm-hmm. One of the other issues, obviously, is that DC still trails the national average, which is about 86 or 87%. What do you believe are the challenges or barriers that are keeping DC from matching or exceeding those national percentage figures?
I think the trend would suggest that we will eventually get to and exceed those national figures. we can't get to higher graduation rates without going through a process. And we are moving forward, and that forward momentum will lead to us being able to reach the national average. I'm so pleased to see that more students are recognizing the importance of a high school degree and moving forward to obtain it. It is a harbinger of good things to come. And I am excited to continue to provide the programming necessary to capture students' interest and attention and see them move forward into success in college and career.
Well, I want to drill down a little bit more on that because I think it would be inappropriate for someone to expect that the DC public school system wave a magic wand and have these improvements happen overnight. But there are some issues, some specifics that I'm sure that in the reporting that you've seen that have given you pause or made you wonder, well, even though we're improving, what is it that we're not doing? Or perhaps what is it that other equally large school districts are doing that aren't allowing our numbers to keep up with the national average?
Well, certainly one of the issues that we face has to do with chronic absenteeism. This is a problem that is happening across the nation. And clearly, when students aren't in school, it is difficult for us to teach them and enable them to move forward towards graduation. We are working diligently to address chronic absenteeism through several programs, including a program that is in many of our high schools. The Department of Human Services is providing wraparound services for students who are experiencing chronic absenteeism. In addition to that, as I've indicated, our course offerings, we hope, are pulling students in. We know that students struggle. Sometimes they face family concerns that would result in the student not attending as much as they like. We know that when students attend school, academic achievement increases. We've got data to show that, and academic improvement would lead to higher graduation rates. So we're working really hard to address chronic absenteeism. We are working hard to ensure that students that may not have received the necessary reading and mathematics skills in earlier grades are obtaining those skills as they move forward, and feel like we have a lot of momentum and are moving in the right direction.
When you talk about graduation improvement and academic progress, is it the test scores? Is it non-academic course completion? Is it, I mean, you just mentioned obviously attendance. Is it counseling? What data do you have to break down some of those issues?
Well, interestingly enough, our school report card is a documentation of all of those things. We look to academic achievement as reflected in state test scores. We look to attendance. We look to course selection, whether or not students are taking courses that will prepare them for the future, CTE, AP courses, dual enrollment courses. Our accountability system is inclusive of all of those things. We've got an incredible diversity of schools in the District of Columbia, ranging from high flyers like Banneker, McKinley, Washington Latin, and so I think that it's important to recognize that the schools are working incredibly hard. They are all really keyed in to supporting students, whatever that might mean. And we also have a school climate survey, which is providing information about the school climate. Because we also know that when a child feels welcoming, feels that they have some adult in the school who um, cares about them, cares about their attendance and their achievement, that student is more likely to come to school. And so we've got tons of information about school climate that really does predict how well students perform in terms of academic achievement and graduation.
Hold your point. I'm going to take a break, but we will continue on the other side. We want to remind our listeners that you can hear this and every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. The Original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR-FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about improved graduation rates in the DC public school system with State Superintendent Dr. Antoinette Mitchell. I wanted to go back to what we were talking about, but before the break, and I know you would probably say, yeah, all of these things, are important. Obviously, test scores are primary, but you've mentioned earlier on several occasions CET, the career technical education. Can you talk to me about the evolution of that and what role that is playing for young people? Because granted, college isn't for everyone. We understand that, and we have seen in the public town square conversations about the lack of woodshop, home economics, and other kinds of trade or technical education things coming back.
Yes, I am happy to talk about CTE, or Career and Technical Education. So at one point in DC, we had a pretty robust career and technical education system. We had schools like Armstrong. McKinley Tech has always been around. Phelps has been around for a while now. And the programming coming out of those schools was indeed HVAC, hair, nails, things of that nature. CTE has seen a renaissance in recent years to be expansive and inclusive of all careers, from architecture to finance and banking, to communications, to graphic design, information technology. All of these fields are now available in our schools as career and technical education offerings. Many of our schools have academies that enable students to specialize in a particular area. We believe, and data show, that when a student can take a course that is relevant to that student's interests, that the student can clearly see connections between the course, what's happening in the school, and their future career aspirations. Students are more likely to come, they're more likely to graduate, more likely to go on to post-secondary education. So CTE is a proven strategy for increasing all of those important statistics in education. In the District of Columbia, we've got 42 different what we call programs of study. These are successive courses in a particular area that culminate in some type of work-based learning. Fortunately, we are able to offer many juniors and seniors internships, which are paid work experiences where our students can connect with local businesses, complete a meaningful internship experience as a capstone to their career and technical education coursework. And I spoke earlier about the advanced technical centers, and those are just cherries on top of a larger system across the city. And we truly believe that because students are engaged in real world activities in these courses, because students are engaged in hands-on, really interesting work in these courses, we think that this is a big driver for students' attendance as well as graduation.
I want to ask you also about graduation outcomes and how they vary by race, income, special education, English as a second language status, uh, those dealing with underserved communities. You mentioned some of the high flying schools which are not in underserved communities, but what about those that are? What has changed, or what is the DC public school system changing to
Mhm.
target those communities?
Yes, we certainly think that equity is an important value across all of our schools. And so we've worked very hard to ensure that our CTE offerings, say, are indeed available in all of our schools, regardless of the zip code. The same holds true for dual enrollment and AP coursework. Now, it is true that there are differences in achievement when it comes to uh, differences in socioeconomic status and race and ethnicity, as well as special education. We are very much aware of those differences. We actually work with the lowest performing schools that have very obvious differences between students in these various categories to one, be able to pinpoint what the differences are. We've not always been able to do that. Sometimes if you look at a whole school or a whole system, those differences are hidden. But we have the data to be able to disaggregate and identify schools that have those gaps. And then we work with those schools. And sometimes working with those schools means providing additional resources. Sometimes it's additional faculty members. Sometimes it's additional programming. We know that in education in our country, there is often a distinction between students who come from backgrounds that are well resourced versus those that are not. And we try in our schools to supplement so that all students can achieve to their highest potential. The work is ongoing. The work is it's a big job because there are such disparities, but we are making progress and we're happy about that.
When you talk about the students who, for example, may speak languages other than English as a first language, I
Mhm.
think the Latino community is a prime example. With despite the 2025 politics that have impacted every level of DC government, the
Mhm.
children are still in school.
Yeah.
Do you have the resources to best address their educational needs, and what do you need more of to do that?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to say that speaking a language other than English is an asset. And we work to build on that asset as we build English skills in our student body. We have educators who are particularly trained to work with students who are learning English, and they move through schools. And when they reach a certain level, they're able to transition out of those specialized programs. We've got a ton of bilingual schools in the city, and we also have schools that cater to kids that are from bilingual backgrounds. And so the resources, I think, are there. We could always use additional resources. But we have been working with this population, and we are seeing incremental growth along with other students in our system.
A couple of weeks ago, I had an opportunity to speak to two college professors, colleagues of mine who taught at uh, two different colleges, and we were just talking about education. Both of them said this to me, I'm paraphrasing, that the the young people that are coming out of high schools, and they weren't talking about DC per
Mhm.
se, they were just talking about high schools because they were seeing young people come in from all over the world, all over the country.
Mhm.
But both of them said, that these young people aren't ready for college, even as they get there. When you hear something like that, um, what comes to mind?
Mhm. Um, I would say that a blanket statement that students aren't ready for college is not quite correct, because we know that many of our students are excelling in AP and dual enrollment courses and making gains on the SAT. At the same time, I will acknowledge that across the nation and here in DC, our SAT scores are not as high as we would like them to be. I think that society has changed. I think attention spans are different. Um, and as a result of these things, students might not be achieving at the same level as they have in the past. They are so much more, it's hard to be a kid these days, so much more to distract students from learning. But I would also say that as students matriculate to college, it's really up to those colleges to pick up the mantle. In the K-12 systems, we have done a yeoman's job, and many colleges have been able to stand in the gap and help students continue to grow and gain skills, even as they have to do some remediation.
And I think that's what I was getting at. As you said, society has changed, and certainly education, as you and I knew
Hmm.
it when we were graduating from high school and going into college. In all transparency, I can't count. I got it from my dad. He can't count either. Okay, but as an educator and as an administrator,
Hmm.
with all of these other things that are the programs and resources that are put in place, do you have any concerns about really the basics, the foundation of education, reading, writing, arithmetic? um, where would you say the DC public school system is in dealing with those things?
Hmm. I would say that the DC system and the city writ large is really focused on those basics that you just spoke about. We've got initiatives around literacy that include retraining and providing professional development for teachers in the science of reading, which is a proven methodology that combines um, phonetic awareness and phonics with comprehension, and fluency. We have tutors in classrooms working on reading. In addition to professional development, we are coaching teachers. We are giving teachers opportunities to share their process with other teachers. So literacy is actually a very important and very important part of the work that we are doing as a state agency, and that schools and local education agencies are engaged in. The same is true for mathematics. We have a goal to ensure that all kids feel like they are math people, because everybody uses math every day, and we have to develop a growth mindset. I actually believe that we've got to use the technology that is coming down the pike to ensure that our students have those basic skills, as well as critical thinking and the ability to synthesize information. I'm excited that we have recently developed a graduate profile, which through a ton of stakeholder feedback has identified the characteristics of a graduate. And those characteristics not only include those basics that I just talked about, but
Hmm.
additional characteristics like digital literacy, social emotional competence, and things like that. So key academics are the foundation, uh, uh, but we are also working to provide so much more.
Hmm. Are you in any way, shape, or form concerned about the growth of AI, artificial intelligence, and the use of it by students, not as a tool but as a crutch?
Mhm. Yeah, I think like any technology, it can be either a tool or a crutch. I am interested in ensuring that our students and teachers use AI as a tool.
Hmm.
The possibilities are pretty exciting, but we have to put guidelines and we have to put constraints around it so that it does not become a crutch, so that students know how to read and analyze a passage, so that students have the ability to do math problems. But at the same time, we have to ensure that our students are aware of the technology and know how to use it, not only to help with homework, but also for careers. Like how do you maximize the use of AI to understand college options? What what can AI do to advance one's personal desires in terms of college and career? Those are the types of questions that, I mean, how do you use AI? How do you ask questions in an AI world, and that will get the best results? And what do kids understand about what AI is? What is a large language model? Um, what is happening when you ask a question of AI? Those things are incredibly important for our kids to move into college and the workforce. And so we've got to ensure we can't be afraid of AI, and we shouldn't pull back from AI. We have to understand how to use it to develop minds and also not just be consumers, but creators.
Hmm. I want to talk a little bit more about readiness
Hmm.
for graduation and the world beyond. When you look at, again, these numbers, this increase, how do you know that what you're doing is directly related to the increase in the graduation rate? How do you know that, for example, uh, grading policies or curriculum or assessments and the like are reflecting true readiness? Certainly we know that that there's always been a concern or question about social promotion, um grade inflation. How do you know that what you're doing is really working behind those numbers?
Hmm. Um, I I think that a part of the reason that I know that the numbers are
Hmm.
real is because I've been in the high schools. I've talked with students. I see the work that they're doing, the level of interest that they have, the goals that they have for themselves. I see that every day as I interact with students. But beyond that, education has always had difficulty with causality. Versus correlation, right? And so it is very difficult to prove direct causality that this course caused this student to graduate because there's so
Mm.
many variables that exist. What
Hmm.
I can tell you is our high schools are working. Our high schools are working to ensure that we've got qualified teachers. Our high schools are working to ensure that we've got excellent curriculum. Our high schools are working to ensure that we've got courses that students are interested in taking. Our high schools are working to ensure that we've got parent engagement. We know the inputs, and we are working very hard to ensure that those inputs are in place so that students can flourish.
Yeah, I think that is such an important point when you were talking about causality and whether or not a specific class is a direct contributor to where that student eventually ends up come May that in 12th grade. How might you also make sure that schools are being held accountable
Mm-hmm.
for the work that they're doing, because as you've alluded to earlier, educating children is complex, to say the least.
Yes, there are a few answers to that question. One, the school report card that we recently released is an example of how we hold schools accountable. We've got a scale of 1 to 100, and all of the schools are rated on that scale based on test scores, growth rates, how much kids grew from one iteration of the test to the next, as well as course offerings, dual enrollment, AP, attendance. All of those things are calculated into the school scores. And in a place like DC, where school choice is such a big part of the education environment, that matters. We have EdFest, which are school fairs where parents can come out, parents and family members can come out. All of the schools are there represented, and there's an opportunity for interaction as parents are making choices about where to send their students to school. EdFest, by the way, is happening next Saturday at Kraken Courts on Rhode Island Avenue.
What's the date?
It's Saturday, December 13th.
Okay.
10 a.m. to 2 p.m. At Kraken Courts and Skates, which is located on 4th and Rhode Island Avenue in Northeast Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So families have a choice. And a part of that choice is understanding what schools are doing, what the outcomes are, how students are progressing after they finish. We've seen increased enrollment in DC's public schools year over year. And that is in an environment where other districts are seeing decreases in enrollment. We're seeing upticks in test scores, upticks in graduation rates. So we are holding schools accountable, but families are also holding schools accountable based on those scores that we produce.
One of the things that I remember a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, when it was that school counselors played a really significant role in spotting talent and skills, natural talent or natural skills that perhaps parents may be missing, that the student may or may not be aware of, that could literally, once pointed out, change the trajectory of their educational path. What kind of conversations are you having? And when I say you, not just Dr. Mitchell, but your office, and and just encouraging, counselors to keep an eye out, for those things that literally could change a child's life. And I say that because you have some students, and we've all heard those stories where, what are you going to do when you graduate? Well, I'm going to join the Marines. I'm going to join the Army. Nothing wrong with that. Military is a great career. But maybe you have those counselors who say, maybe you should try Howard, or maybe you should try Harvard, or maybe you should try the military academy instead of enlisting.
Yes, school counselors play an incredibly important role in helping students decide what's next. We know, though, that in our school systems, we don't have enough counselors to work successfully with every student. And
Hmm.
so many schools have college and career coordinators. They have leaders of the various academies that students are attending. Some schools have wall-to-wall academies, and you have leaders in those academies. And some schools encourage small groups of students who are assigned to a given teacher, and that teacher is that student's touch point for things like this. So schools have devised different ways to ensure that students are connecting with a caring adult who can help students make decisions around day-to-day course attendance, course selection, as well as what they want to do in the future. It is incredibly important for a child to have an adult who is attuned to the student and able to see beyond what a student might be able to see in themselves. And so we encourage schools to make those kinds of connections with students. But it's not just the counselor anymore. There's a whole array of responsibilities in schools to get that done.
I only have a minute or so left, but moving forward in the wake of this report card, uh, what are the new priorities or tweaks that need to be made for the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah. So we are embarking on the development of a strategic plan for the state education agency, even as we speak. We are soliciting feedback from the community, from the public, and we encourage you to visit our website at ossie.dc.gov to complete the survey. I would imagine that some of the areas that we hope to focus on include continuing to increase graduation rates. We're going to continue focusing on literacy and math across the city. We're going to take a very good look at special education to determine where we can tweak the system, change the system so that our students are able to achieve their maximum potential. Those are some of the areas where I think we're going to keep pushing on. And finally, I think reimagining the high school experience is an important component that we're going to continue to push.
Yeah, certainly. Reimagining the experience of high school is a very interesting concept. I personally would be interested in seeing how not just DC but schools across the nation address that, because as we said, the world is changing. Education is changing. It is certainly not for the faint of heart. Thank you so much, State Superintendent Dr. Antoinette Mitchell. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. I've enjoyed talking with you.
That is the Daily Drum for this Tuesday, December 9th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.